I challenge anyone to show me a chimpanzee that would not make a fortune if they were given free money and a roulette wheel and it's heads I win, tails you lose. I think a chimpanzee would make a lot of money. I'm confident a chimpanzee would make a lot of money in an environment like that.
So there are two layers of people that are benefiting here, and that is the executives of these elite corporations and the politicians.
Well, there are three beneficiaries. First of all, the people who work at the main banks are huge beneficiaries. The big banks are huge beneficiaries because they are the vehicle for the money printing. So all this money that gets shoved out into the economy, the crap assets getting bought for 100% in the dollar, the main banks are the beneficiaries of that money. They get that money, and now what they can do with that money is they can go and gamble with that money and issue more loans and do all sorts of stuff with that money. And they've got the beautiful situation that they're in where if they make huge bets with that money and the bets pay off big, they get to keep all the profits. But if they blow up, they get to hand the shit back to the taxpayer. And they get to hang on to their bonuses and they get to hang on to their profits. Now I ask you, when you see Commonwealth Bank, ANZ, record profits and so on and so on, I challenge anyone to show me a chimpanzee that would not make a fortune if they were given free money and a roulette wheel and it's heads I win, tails you lose. I think a chimpanzee would make a lot of money. I'm confident a chimpanzee would make a lot of money in an environment like that. So that's how I think of the banks. They cannot lose. Okay? And we know that when they did lose in the GFC, big time, boy, did they lose. They were gambling. They were actually issuing loans to people who barely had a heartbeat. And when it turned out those people barely had a heartbeat, those banks got bailed out. So you can't lose in a scenario like that. So they're the first beneficiaries. The second beneficiaries are the politicians, because the politicians have now discovered a mechanism where everything they promise can be paid for. Not by them, not by the voters, we're not sure who's going to pay it back, but we promise you someone is going to pay it back. But it's not going to be you, so vote for us. So the beauty of this system we have now, the debt issuing system, is fund all your election promises with credit creation and asset purchases and asset sales. Fund all your election promises like that. And the people who are going to have to pay for all these promises haven't even been born yet. The third beneficiary is the big corporates.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I say the third beneficiaries are the big corporates is because they've got a really, really, really good system going. And their system is that their pay and their performance and everything about what they're doing is based on what they are doing now. Yeah? If they can generate huge profits now by selling half of Qantas, by getting rid of half the workforce, whatever it might be, by slashing the wages of everyone, might make their profits look really, really good now. They get their bonuses now. Their bonuses are banked now. Their performance is appraised now. 5 years down the track, if it turns out that what they did was an absolute disaster, the company, there are not enough planes, there are not enough seats, there are not enough staff, no one can afford airline tickets anymore because they all had their wages cut, whatever the reason. 5 years later, it all turns into a total disaster. The whole company goes belly up. Do any of those executives have to give back any of their ill-gotten gains? No, not a one. These guys are allowed to do whatever they want now, and there are no consequences later. Do you know that in the GFC, in the 2008 financial crisis, every single one of those main Wall Street banks collapsed? Every single one of them. JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Bear Stearns, Goldman Sachs, Citibank, Lehman, they all collapsed. Lehman was allowed to go under. The other ones were rescued. But the reason why I say to you is that these all collapsed was these are companies that survived the Great Depression. They survived the Great Depression. Why did they survive how did they manage to survive the Great Depression? I'll tell you what the answer is. They were all partnerships. What does a partnership mean? A partnership means the people who ran those banks were gambling with their money. What else do you need to say? If you're gambling with your money, you think about what you're doing with your money. When those banks became public institutions, when they now became backed by the federal government and by the taxpayer, the CEOs in those companies now were no longer gambling with their money. They were gambling with someone else's money, and it didn't take long for them to blow up.